On a cold December night in 1991, Austin, Texas, fell into darkness unlike any it had ever known. A small frozen yogurt shop, bright, cheerful, a place where teenagers laughed and families gathered, would soon become the scene of one of the most brutal crimes in American history. What started as an ordinary Saturday night would end with fire, horror, and 4 young lives taken in the most unimaginable way. The victims were not strangers to one another. They were daughters, sisters, friends. Jennifer Harbison, her younger sister Sarah, their friend Eliza Thomas, and Amy Ayers, 4 teenage girls whose futures were bright, whose dreams were just beginning. But in the late hours of December 6, 1991, their laughter was silenced forever. By morning, Austin would wake to the kind of news that shakes a city to its core. Tonight, we take you back into that night through the smoke and ashes, through the failed investigations and shattered trials, and into the mystery that still lingers 3 decades later. This is not just a crime story. It is a wound that never healed. This is the story of the yogurt shop murders. It was close to midnight when firefighters responded to a blaze at the I Can't Believe It's Yogurt shop on Anderson Lane. To onlookers, it seemed like a simple fire, tragic but ordinary. But when the smoke cleared, the truth revealed itself in the most horrific way. 4 teenage girls, bound and murdered, lay inside the ruins of the shop. The youngest, Amy, was only 13. The others, barely 15 and 17. Their bodies were stacked, shot, and the fire had been set to erase the evidence. The scene was described by hardened detectives as the most horrifying they had ever witnessed. This was no robbery gone wrong. This was a calculated act of cruelty. By morning, the news spread across Austin like wildfire. Parents clutched their children tighter, neighbors locked their doors. And everyone was asking the same question: who could commit something so monstrous? Investigators quickly realized the fire was no accident. Accelerants had been used to destroy evidence. What the killers didn't know was that the flames had not consumed everything. Beneath the soot, blood, bullet casings, and DNA traces would remain, silent witnesses to what had happened inside that yogurt shop. The victims' bodies bore signs of a struggle. They had been tied, gagged, and shot execution style. Some evidence suggested sexual assault. The brutality stunned even veteran officers. Austin had seen murders before, but nothing like this. Nothing that screamed so loudly of pure evil. But despite the horror, detectives believed the killers had made mistakes. Someone had left behind something that science, even in 1991, might someday catch. Hope began to flicker, but as the case unfolded, that hope would be crushed again and again. As investigators worked the crime scene, the families were struck with unimaginable grief. Jennifer Harbison, just 17, had been working the night shift at the yogurt shop. Her younger sister Sarah, 15, had stopped by to keep her company. Their friend Eliza Thomas, also 17, was helping out after her own shift. Amy Ayers, the youngest at 13, had simply wanted a night out with friends. Their faces soon appeared across every news channel. School photos became memorials. These were not nameless victims. They were young girls full of dreams. Jennifer wanted to be a veterinarian. Sarah had just entered high school. Eliza loved working with animals. Amy was the baby of the group, full of laughter and innocence. To the city, they were everyone's daughters. And the thought that someone had ended their lives in such a calculated, vicious way left people reeling in grief and rage. Police swarmed the case with urgency. Dozens of detectives, endless interviews, hundreds of tips. But from the very beginning, the investigation was plagued with mistakes. Evidence was mishandled. Leads were followed too late. The chaotic nature of the crime scene, combined with the devastating fire, made things harder by the hour. Witnesses reported seeing strange men near the shop that night, but descriptions were vague. Some said 2 men, others said 4. One customer had even been inside shortly before the fire, but nothing pointed directly to the killers. Still, detectives pressed on. They had blood samples. They had bullet casings. They had a crime too horrific to leave unsolved. But the truth was, they were already slipping into a storm of confusion that would haunt the case for decades. The murders shook Austin like an earthquake. Parents demanded answers. Schools held vigils. The yogurt shop, once a place of light, became a shrine of flowers, candles, and tears. People gathered in silence, holding one another, desperate to believe justice would come quickly. The media swarmed, painting the case as one of the most horrific crimes in Texas history. For a city that prided itself on safety, this was a nightmare come alive. The innocence of Austin was gone overnight. For the families, grief was bottomless. Every time they turned on the TV, they saw their daughters' faces staring back. Every interview was a plea. Please help us find who did this. As pressure mounted, police focused on a group of teenage boys. Interrogations dragged on, confessions were coerced, and eventually 4 young men were charged. For a moment, the city thought justice was finally here. But the truth was far darker. The confessions didn't match the evidence. Details were wrong, timelines didn't fit, and the supposed killers couldn't explain basic facts of the crime. Years later, DNA testing would prove what many suspected. The wrong men had been accused. The wrongful convictions shattered trust in the investigation. Families who thought they'd finally see justice were once again left with nothing but anger and heartbreak. The real killers were still free. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, science advanced. DNA testing gave hope that the case could finally be solved. Samples from the crime scene were tested again. The results? Male DNA was found, but it matched none of the suspects. It was both relief and devastation. Relief that innocent men might go free, but devastation that after so many years, the real killers were still faceless, nameless. The DNA profile was uploaded into national databases, but no match came. Whoever did this had never been caught for another crime. Detectives clung to the science, hoping that one day, technology or genealogy would provide the answer. But each year that passed was another reminder that time was slipping away. Courtrooms became battlefields of pain. The accused men were tried, convicted, and later had their convictions overturned. Families sat through endless hearings, listening to legal arguments that brought no comfort. Every overturned ruling reopened old wounds. For Austin, it was a spectacle. For the families, it was torment. The girls' names were dragged through years of uncertainty. Instead of answers, there were only more questions. The trials ended, but no real justice came. And as the years rolled by, the killers remained nameless shadows hiding in plain sight. Decades later, the families still speak their daughters' names. They hold vigils, light candles, and remind the world that Jennifer, Sarah, Eliza, and Amy were more than just victims. They were loved. They mattered. The pain never faded. Holidays, birthdays, graduations, all stolen. For the mothers and fathers, the wound has never closed. For siblings, the absence has never stopped hurting. For the community, the case became a scar they still carry. But the families refuse to give up. They know someone out there remembers. Someone knows the truth. Someone has carried this secret for more than 30 years. Today, the yogurt shop where the murders happened is long gone. Businesses have replaced it, but the memory lingers like smoke in the air. Ask anyone who lived in Austin in 1991, and they will remember exactly where they were when they heard the news. Cold case detectives continue to work the files. DNA still sits in evidence rooms, waiting for the day it will match a name. Every so often, new tips come, but nothing has broken the silence completely. The killers, whoever they are, have evaded justice for decades, and that is the most chilling part of all. The murderers of Jennifer, Sarah, Eliza, and Amy could still be walking among us, free, unpunished, carrying the weight of their secret in silence. This is not just a case. It is a haunting reminder that evil sometimes wins when truth remains hidden. 4 girls, full of life and laughter, were taken in one night of cruelty. 30 years later, their families are still waiting, still hoping, still praying for justice. Their names must never fade. Jennifer, Sarah, Eliza, Amy, they deserve to be remembered not just as victims but as daughters, sisters, friends. They deserve a world that refuses to forget them. If this story touched you, don't let it end here. Share their names. Keep their memory alive. And subscribe to this channel so together we can continue to shine light on the darkest mysteries. Because sometimes telling the story is the only way to bring justice closer. Stay safe, hug your loved ones, and until next time.